on the show, it's the epic history of House Baratheon.
Yes, Stannis has the king's nuts.
The king's nuts! So today on the show, we're going to be talking about the history of House Baratheon. First off, we're going to start with the distant past in lore, and then go up to the founding of House Baratheon with Orys Baratheon. And then we're going to be talking about your present-day Baratheons. We're going to be talking about some Baratheon bastards. We're also going to be doing some Onion Knight and Melisandre business, so it should be pretty awesome.
Wait a minute. Who all are the Baratheons? I forgot.
Well, Robot, the Baratheons that you know and love from the start of Game of Thrones consist of three brothers. You have Robert, middle child Stannis, and then bringing up the rear you have Renly. But also on the side you do have Gendry, who is one of Robert Baratheon's bastard sons. So he's not really a Baratheon, but I'll count him. Technically, Robert has a lot of bastards. A lot of them were taken out by Joffrey when he did that crazy culling of the city. But I'm sure there's still some more running around. I actually think there's one in the Vale, Maya Stone, but you haven't met her yet, so shh, don't tell anybody.
I'm sure I've got a lot of bastards around town. You know what I'm saying?
Back to the Baratheons. If you remember, their sigil is a black stag on a golden field. Their house motto is "Ours is the Fury," and their seat of power is at Storm's End. Although after Robert's Rebellion, it's kind of spawned two cadet branches, because then you have the Baratheons in the Red Keep, and then you also have Stannis on Dragonstone. So they kind of have like 3 seats right now, which is pretty badass.
Is it time to talk about Stannis yet?
Almost. So to understand the history of House Baratheon, you have to go all the way back to the Age of Heroes before there even was a House Baratheon. Back to the original Storm Kings.
Who are they?
So the legend of Storm's End begins with King Durin I, otherwise known as God's Grief, who ends up marrying a couple of God's daughter, Elanai. Now her dad and mom were the sea god and the wind goddess, right? So if you piss those guys off, they're gonna get together and make some fucked up storms. So that's what happened, and that's why Storm's End ended up becoming so damn stormy, because this king pissed off these gods, so that explains that whole deal. Anyways, he marries the daughter on their wedding night. The mom and the dad get together, fucking create a storm so bad that it kills all the wedding guests except for Durin and his wife, and he's so pissed that he vows revenge, and he just keeps building crazier and crazier castles, which Elanai's mom and dad keep just battering down over and over again until the 7th castle, which is Storm's End, which is still standing today. And the reason that it might still be standing is because the Children of the Forest may have had some hand in it, or even Bran the Builder is rumored to have helped construct this building. So there may be some spells going on in there, we're not entirely sure. So this crazy legendary castle of Storm's End would eventually become the seat of House Baratheon many generations later.
So where did the Baratheons come in then?
So the founding of House Baratheon occurred during Aegon's conquest. And that's because the Baratheons owe their entire family lineage to the Targaryens. And here's how it happened. Now, Orys Baratheon was not only rumored to be Aegon's bastard brother, who probably has half Targaryen blood, but he was also a commander in his army and his homeboy. So during the conquest of Westeros, Aegon had his homeboy Orys and his sister wife Rhaenys fly over to the Stormlands to take Storm's End on Meraxes the Dragon. And when they get over there, the last Storm King, Argilac Durendon the Arrogant, comes out in the field and is easily defeated. Then Argella, his daughter, ends up proclaiming herself Storm Queen since her dad is dead, and starts defending Storm's End against Orys and Rhaenys. But the people of Storm's End are like, yo, these people got a dragon and you're gonna get us all killed by being an asshole. So they end up taking Argella, wrapping her in chains, taking all her clothes off, delivering her naked to Orys, saying, please just don't kill us with your dragon. And instead of being a dick, Orys shows mercy, covers Argella with his cloak, marries her, mingles their houses, and the rest is history. So the Baratheons would continue to be friends and allies with the Targaryens for the next few centuries, and even help them during the Blackfyre Rebellion. And Princess Rhaelle Targaryen even married into the Baratheon family, eventually giving birth to Steffon Baratheon, who is the father of Robert, Stannis, and Renly. So the Baratheons really do have Targaryen blood.
Is this where Stannis comes in?
Not quite yet. So let's skip the next 300 years to the birth of Robert, Stannis, and Renly. And as it turns out, these guys suffered a traumatic childhood experience. So when they were young, the Mad King Aerys asked their parents, Steffon and Cassana Baratheon, to travel all the way to the Free Cities in an attempt to find Rhaegar Targaryen a bride. But the trip was totally unsuccessful. They didn't find anybody, so they decided to travel back empty-handed. They know their parents are coming home, they're waiting for them, they see their ship coming into the bay, and then out of nowhere, a freak storm happens, destroys the ship, killing their parents right in front of them. And Stannis and Robert watch helplessly while their parents' ship is destroyed and sinks to the bottom of Shipbreaker Bay. So after the untimely demise of his parents, Robert Baratheon is shipped off to be fostered in the Eyrie by a childless Jon Arryn, and that's where he meets Ned Stark, and they become total besties super quick. And they become such BFFs that Robert ends up falling for Ned's sister Lyanna and is set to marry her so he can become Ned's bro for real. And I think that really, Robert would have been happy marrying anyone just about because he just doesn't care because he's a slut butt. So like the only reason he really fell for Lyanna and wanted to be with her was really because he wanted to be totally like in the same family as Ned. I mean, if you think about it, at the beginning of Game of Thrones, he's trying to mingle their houses through their kids. This guy really wants to be like super bros with Ned.
If your sister had lived, we'd have been bound by blood. Well, it's not too late. I have a son, you have a daughter. We'll join our houses.
And as you know, while Ned and Robert are being fostered in the Eyrie and this whole thing's set up with Lyanna, Lyanna ends up being kidnapped by Rhaegar, which sets off the whole Robert's Rebellion thing in motion. Okay, they're about like 16 too when this whole thing starts. Just saying, like, it's pretty nuts. How many 16-year-olds do you know that can mount a rebellion? They can't even get off their asses. They're all fat now. So now, let's talk about the history of Robert Baratheon. So Robert Baratheon, growing up, he was the eldest of the 3 Baratheon brothers, and he was super charming and like really fun-loving. He was a really good fighter, very spirited, and he was also super handsome back in the day. He looked like a romance novel cover guy or something. He was like super buff and like just had this giant war hammer and was just like totally hot. And he was also a slut. I think we all know that. He was always spreading his wild oats all over the kingdoms, trying to make the 8. And the thing about Robert is that Robert is just a great fighter. He's just an amazing fighter and just not a good leader. You know, you can't have it all. You can't be a fighter and a leader. Some people are both, some people aren't. He's not one of them. So once he gets the throne, he just doesn't know what to do anymore. Like his purpose, he's peaked. He's peaked. His purpose in life is over. His purpose is being strong and tough, and he defeated this guy, and then now he has nothing to do. So he just gets fat and drinks a bunch of wine and fucks a bunch of whores and...
I bet you smell a blackberry jam. Let me see. Come here.
You know, tries to make kids with Cersei. I mean, we all know that doesn't work out very well, but...
Was it ever possible for us? Was there ever a time, ever a moment?
No.
And the thing about Robert that's really interesting is that when Robert took the throne, even though Mad King Aerys was kind of fucking out of his gourd, he still had a surplus of gold. Like, that dude had, like, money just stored away everywhere. And then when Robert comes into power, Robert essentially just beggars the realm. I mean, he just, like, spends all this money on, like, tourneys and feasts and all this fuckery. So by the time he dies, the whole realm is just in so much debt. It's just staggering. It's just staggering.
Are you telling me the crown is 3 million in debt?
I'm telling you the crown is 6 million in debt.
How could he let this happen?
The master of coin finds the money, the king and the hand spend it.
I will not believe Jon Arryn allowed Robert to bankrupt the realm.
Lord Arryn gave wise and prudent advice, but I fear his grace doesn't always listen.
Counting coppers, he calls it.
So You know, Robert may have been a good guy, but he was definitely a shitty king of Westeros.
So Stannis then, right?
It's not Stannis yet. So after Robert's coronation onto the Iron Throne, but before the events of Game of Thrones, there was the Greyjoy Rebellion.
Ooh, what's that?
All right. So since Robert was newly on his throne, Balon Greyjoy, Theon Greyjoy's dad, was like, well, this guy's a noobler, and let's test him, and fuck this guy. I think that we can get away with this. And he declares himself the king of the Iron Islands and is trying to secede from the Union, essentially. Also, another reason why the Greyjoys decided to do this was because during Robert's rebellion, everyone involved with that took a lot of heavy losses. All of the houses, a lot of their vassals were taken out. But the Greyjoys never entered Robert's rebellion, so they were totally fine. They haven't lost any ships or any men. They're at total full strength when the rest of the realm is still staggering a little bit.
What's the Greyjoys' problem?
Well, the Greyjoys are just some salty motherfuckers, you know? That's just their problem. That's how they roll. So they're just kind of dicks. It's because they live in Pike, where it's just like there's no plants and it's just like depressing and there's just rocks and sea and that's it. So they're just kind of tougher people, you know? And the thing that I like most about the Greyjoy Rebellion is the fact that there's like so many people from the Game of Thrones era that were involved in it, so it's really fun to hear about them all getting together and like getting in this little fray. First of all, you have Stannis and Paxter Redwine, and they're in charge of like smashing the Iron Islands fleet, which they totally do. They take the biggest island, Great White, where Barristan Selmy, who's now with Daenerys, he was there and he was like leading the attack. Okay, that's totally awesome. And then on the main battle over on Pike, you have Thoros of Myr being the first one through the breach. You have Jorah Mormont there, who wins his knighthood that day, as well as Ned. Like, they were all there. Ned was involved in this whole thing too. So this battle was pretty interesting, I think, just because it just has so many players in it. And after this Greyjoy Rebellion was put down by all these badasses, Theon Greyjoy, who is the last surviving son of Balon Greyjoy, is then taken as a captive and is raised with the Starks. So that's where Theon came from. He came from the Greyjoy Rebellion.
Stannis.